Hello, hello. It's Janet Clark with the Freedom Shift here today on Janet Talks Business TV, and we are discussing money matters. So, does money matter? Well, it's an interesting question because on the surface, the answer seems obvious. Of course it matters. Money is basic to our survival, and we need it for food, clothing, and shelter. But more importantly, it buys us freedom and it allows us to have more time to engage in a lifestyle of our choice. So, what I have discovered is that money, whether it's in abundance or lack, is a huge factor in how we view ourselves and how we behave. And our relationship with money carries over to every relationship that we have in our life, including the relationship with ourselves and our business. So what that means is that if you live in a lack of money, you will live in a lack of confidence, you will lack self-esteem, and you will lack a positive motivation. So in other words, if your money mindset is to hang on to what you've got, you'll never get ahead. So how do I know this? Well, I have been there myself, and I have worked through that. And I've also talked to so many of you, at least 100 of you in the last few months. So let me tell you a quick story about me and money. From an early age, I was determined that I was going to have money because for me, it represented independence. So even when I got married and had 4 sons, I always wanted to have a career and I always worked so that I wouldn't have to feel dependent on my husband. My mentality was that no matter what happened, I would always be able to take care of myself and my children. So fast forward a few years, when my oldest son, Dan, was 15, and my twin sons, Mike and Dave, were 14, and my youngest, Rob, was 11. So all of a sudden, life with 3 teenagers and a preteen began to unravel. They had become too old for me to leave them with babysitters, and they were much too vulnerable to be trusted to be on their own. And my oldest son was gravitating to trouble. The household was not running smoothly, and it was impacting all 3 of the other kids. And it became very clear to me that unless I wanted this kid to end up in jail or in a life of major trouble, that I was going to have to quit my job and spend time at home. And giving up that corporate career and the money that represented was a very difficult thing for me to do. It was scary. But I guess I was scared to give up the money, but I was more scared that my son's life would be messed up. So I took the leap of faith and I walked away from that job. And drawing on my entrepreneurial skills, I decided that while I was spending time with the boys, that I would start a business and that they could work in the business with me. So the business was called Dynamic Discoveries, and we sold motivational pictures and items that, like mugs and things like that, t-shirts with motivational sayings. We sold them in malls. You know, those carts that are in the center of the mall? Well, we had one of those and we were in a couple of different malls. And we would order posters and cards, and we would buy frames wholesale, and then we would sit at our kitchen table and we would frame up all the pictures. Then we would box them in boxes that we also bought wholesale and inventory them and then bring them to the cart. So my husband bought a computer, which was in the early days of computering, and he figured out how to use QuickBooks to track our inventory and our sales. And all the boys helped with the framing, and they all worked at the cart. There were a lot of stories and lessons, really, that were learned throughout those years. But my focus today is on the money aspect of this story. So over the course of about 2.5, 3 years, I racked up over $100,000 in credit card debt. So to say that that business wasn't profitable would be an understatement. But I do credit that business with saving my son's life and bonding all of us as a family. It taught all of my sons the value of working and earning a living. And all of the money that we made, I paid to them. And even money that I didn't make, that I needed to live on, I got from the credit cards. So they were even paid commissions on the sales that they made because I wanted to instill on them that pay for performance mentality. And they had no idea that the money was coming from credit cards. And because my husband was still working, we paid our household bills, but everything else was put on the cards. So there was something else that I did do during this time, though, and that was that I furthered my education. Because I had time, I was able to get my master's degree, and also the payments, any payments that I needed for that were also charged to the card. So when it was time for Dan to go off to college a few years later, while we had been doing the business, here I was without a job, $100,000 in debt. Did I have a few sleepless nights? You bet I did. But I prayed and I took action. And what I found was that deep inside of myself, I had a knowing with all of my being that I was going to pay that debt off. And I had a belief that I would find an awesome six-figure job. And I never doubted that I made the right decision. I didn't beat myself up about the debt. I did not allow myself to feel ashamed or embarrassed about it. In fact, I actually was grateful that I had been able to rely on these credit cards to get me through. I celebrated it as an investment in all of my son's education and in the joy that we all had working together. So let's fast forward. Yes, I did get a six-figure job. Yes, my sons all grew up and they now have families of their own. I paid off all that debt, and then I went on to build another business a few years later that was profitable. And then I decided that I wanted a more purpose-based livelihood. So 6 months ago, I launched the Freedom Shift to help entrepreneurs like you discover how to have more time, more money, and live a life of freedom. And over the past few months, I've had the opportunity to talk with over 100 of you. And here's something amazing about you as a group, and I'm sure even some of you who I haven't spoken to, you'll recognize yourself here. You all want freedom. You all are totally motivated to share your gifts with others. You want to help, and you're passionate about doing that. And on every single call that I've had with each one of you, I hear the exact same thing. But I can't afford it. My question to you is, what can't you afford and why? Your money matters are deeply rooted in your psyche. And if you are going to be successful at a business, you must bring them up. You must face them, talk about them, and resolve them. So I invite you to click on the link below to schedule a free 30-minute Money Matters session with me. And I will help you discover the blocks that are in your way, and I'll show you some simple ways to move forward. And I also would like to invite you to join our mastermind, where you can share your dreams and your aspirations with other entrepreneurs that are in similar situation that you're in. You can ask for advice, take advantage of all of the training that I provide free, and also the weekly Mastermind magazine that I send out. So until next week, leave us a message on Facebook. Feel free to email me at janet@thefreedomshift.com, and we will talk more about money matters in the coming weeks. So have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you then. Light and love to you. Bye-bye.